Does your living room make you feel overwhelmed the moment you walk in? That knot in your stomach when you open your front door after a long day, when instead of feeling relief, you feel defeated? 3 months ago, I hit my breaking point. Standing right here, looking at endless piles of clutter, I realized something had to change. But here's what nobody tells you. The solution isn't about buying expensive storage systems or following complex organizing methods that fall apart in real life. What if I told you that I transformed this entire space using things I already had and less than $50 in total? And the best part? These solutions actually stick, even with kids, pets, and a busy life. Today, I'm sharing 6 genius organization techniques that didn't just change my living room, they transformed my entire relationship with my home. And the last one? It's the game-changing secret that professional organizers don't want you to know about because it makes their services obsolete. Before we continue, if you enjoy practical home organization tips that actually work in real life, not just in perfect Instagram photos, make sure to click that subscribe button. This is the best way for you to support our work and never miss out on life-changing home solutions. Thank you very much, and let's continue. Let's begin with a revelation that changed everything for me. Most organization methods fail because they ignore one crucial truth. Your living room isn't just a space, it's the heart of your daily life story. Every item, every surface tells a part of that story. The key isn't to create a showroom, it's to design a space that works with your natural habits and daily rhythms. Let me share something personal that really drove this home for me. Last summer, I spent thousands on professional organizing services, fancy containers, and all those must-have storage solutions. 2 weeks later, everything was back to chaos. That's when I realized we've been approaching organization completely wrong. What we need isn't more products or complicated systems. We need solutions that work with our natural behaviors, not against them. This brings us to our first game-changing technique, the Power Zone system. The genius of this system lies in its simplicity and how it works with your brain's natural patterns. Instead of trying to organize everything at once, we're going to divide your living room into 4 specific zones based on how you actually use the space. Zone 1 is what I call your prime real estate, typically the area around our main seating. This is where most of your daily life happens, so it needs special attention. Here's the key. Start by removing everything that doesn't actively support your daily activities in this zone. I'm not talking about hiding things in boxes or shoving them in closets. I mean really evaluating what belongs here. Let me give you a real example. In my prime real estate zone, I used to have 3 blankets, 6 decorative pillows for remote controls, and countless magazines. After applying the Power Zone system, I kept 2 cozy blankets we actually use for pillows that serve both comfort and style, 1 universal remote, and a simple, beautiful basket for current reading materials. The result? This space now feels both functional and peaceful. Zone 2 is your activity hub, usually the coffee table area and surrounding floor space. This is where most of the daily chaos accumulates, but I've discovered a fascinating pattern. Most of what clutters this zone is actually trying to tell you something about your lifestyle needs. For instance, if you constantly find kids' toys here, instead of fighting it, create an elegant solution that embraces this reality. Here's what I mean. I notice my kids' art supplies always ended up on the coffee table. Instead of repeatedly putting them away in their rooms, I created what I call a stealth storage solution. I found a beautiful vintage suitcase at a thrift store for $5, lined it with simple organizers, and now it sits stylishly next to the coffee table, holding all their creative supplies. It looks intentional, adds character to the room, and most importantly, it works with our natural habits instead of against them. Zone 3 is your transition space, the areas where movement flows through your living room. This is where the magic of the Power Zone system really shows. Most organization methods completely ignore traffic patterns, which is why they fail. The key is to create what I call flow channels, clear pathways that naturally guide movement and prevent clutter from accumulating. Let me share a game-changing insight about transition spaces. The reason clutter builds up in these areas isn't because you're disorganized. It's because your brain is actually trying to create efficient systems, just in a messy way. Those shoes by the entrance? That's your brain creating a quick access point. That pile of mail on the side table? That's an unconscious attempt at a processing station. Instead of fighting these instincts, we're going to refine them. Here's how. First, identify your natural dropping points, those places where items tend to accumulate. Now, instead of trying to change this behavior, we're going to optimize it. For example, if you always drop your keys and mail in the same spot, instead of forcing yourself to walk to a designated key hook across the room, create a stylish landing station right where you naturally stop. I found a beautiful ceramic bowl at a dollar store, added a simple mail sorter for my office, and suddenly, what was once a cluttered corner became an organized, intentional space. Zone 4 is what I call your flex space, the areas that need to serve multiple purposes. This is where most organization systems completely fall apart, but I've discovered a revolutionary approach I call the adaptive grid method. Instead of trying to give everything a permanent home, we're going to create flexible systems that can evolve with your needs. Here's the fascinating thing about flex spaces. They're actually where most people give up on organization because traditional methods are too rigid. But what if I told you that the key to maintaining organization isn't about being more disciplined? It's about being more flexible. This is where vertical space becomes your secret weapon, but not in the way you might think. This brings us to our second game-changing technique, the vertical victory solution. Now, forget everything you've seen about expensive floating shelves and complicated wall mounting systems. I'm going to show you how to unlock the hidden potential of your vertical space using items you probably already have at home. Let me share a surprising discovery I made. Did you know that most people only utilize about 20% of their available vertical space? That here's the real breakthrough. It's not just about putting things on walls. There's actually a psychological component to vertical organization that determines whether it becomes a lasting solution or just another failed attempt. I call it the eyeline rule, and it's based on fascinating research about how our brains process space. You see, we naturally pay the most attention to items that fall between our waist and eye level. Anything above or below tends to become invisible over time. This is why traditional shelf systems often fail. They don't work with our natural patterns of attention. Here's how to apply this knowledge. Start by identifying what I call your active zone, the area between your waist and eyes. This is where you'll place items used daily. In my living room, I created what I call a floating command center, using nothing but tension rods and $3 baskets from the dollar store. The key is to arrange them in a specific pattern that guides your eye naturally. For example, I place my most used items like remote controls and reading materials in baskets at eye level. Then, slightly lower, I created a space for items we use weekly like board games and craft supplies. The genius part? By working with our natural eye movements, these organization systems actually maintain themselves because they're aligned with how our brains naturally process space. But here's where it gets really interesting, the space above eye level. Most people either ignore it completely or try to cram it full of storage, neither of which is optimal. Instead, I've developed what I called a high-low balance method. You use the high spaces for visually pleasing storage of seasonal items while keeping frequently used items in your active zone. Let me show you a practical example. I found these beautiful vintage boxes at a thrift store for $2 each. They sit above eye level, storing holiday decorations and winter blankets. Because they're attractive, they contribute to the room's aesthetics, but because they hold rarely used items, it doesn't matter that they're slightly out of reach. This is how you turn necessary storage into intentional decor. Now, let's talk about what revolutionized my entire approach to furniture, the declutter double duty method. This technique was born from a simple realization. Every piece of furniture in your living room should either serve multiple purposes or be eliminated. But here's the key. These purposes need to align with your actual daily habits, not some idealized version of how you think you should live. Let me share a real game changer that cost me absolutely nothing. You know those decorative boxes that online purchases come in? Instead of recycling them, I turn them into what I call stealth storage seating. Take any sturdy box, yes, even an Amazon box works perfectly, and cover it with a $5 throw blanket. Suddenly, you have both extra seating and hidden storage. But here's the crucial trick to making this look expensive. It's all about the proportions. I discovered that there's actually a golden ratio for these DIY storage ottoman boxes. They should be no taller than 18 inches and no wider than 24 inches to maintain a high-end look. Any larger, and they start to look obviously homemade. I use these throughout my living room, and guests constantly ask where I bought my expensive ottoman set. Each one costs less than $10 to make, and together they provide over 15 cubic feet of hidden storage. But the real magic is in how you arrange them. I created what I call the conversation flow layout, positioning them in a way that naturally encourages social interaction while maintaining easy access to storage. The fourth technique I want to share with you completely changed how I think about room layout, the Flow Fix formula. This isn't just about arranging furniture. It's about understanding and optimizing the invisible pathways that energy and movement take through your living room. Think of your room like a river. When you block its natural flow, problems start to pile up, quite literally. Let me share a breakthrough moment that changed everything. I noticed that clutter consistently accumulated in certain spots, no matter how often I cleaned. Then it hit me. These weren't random piles. They were symptoms of interrupted flow patterns. By studying how my family naturally moved through the space, I discovered what I call traffic pressure points, areas where movement patterns collide and create organizational bottlenecks. Here's how to identify your room's natural flow. Start by tracking your movement patterns for just one day. Where do you pause? Where do you naturally want to turn? These aren't random. They're your room's inherent circulation paths. Once you understand these patterns, you can design your organization systems around them instead of fighting against them. For example, I noticed that we always seem to bump into the corner of our coffee table when walking from the entrance to the kitchen. Instead of constantly reminding everyone to be careful, I simply adjusted the furniture layout to create what I call a flow channel, a natural pathway that guides movement seamlessly through the space. The result? Not only did the bumping stop, but the clutter that used to accumulate there disappeared because we were no longer disrupting the room's natural flow. But here's where it gets really interesting. The Flow Fix formula isn't just about preventing clutter. It's about creating what I call organization momentum. When your room's flow patterns work with your natural habits, staying organized becomes almost effortless. Let me show you what I mean. I created what I call flow stations, small organization zones positioned exactly where you naturally pause or transition in your movement patterns. For instance, if you always stop to check your phone when you enter the room, instead of fighting that habit, create a small charging station right at that pause point. The key is to make it both functional and aesthetically pleasing. This brings us to our fifth game-changing technique, the hidden hub hack. This is where we tackle one of the biggest challenges in modern living rooms, electronic clutter. Charging cables, devices, remotes, they're essential to daily life, but can make even the most organized room look chaotic. But what if I told you there's a way to make all of this disappear while actually improving functionality? Here's the secret that changed everything for me. It's not about hiding your electronics. It's about creating what I call intentional tech zones that work with your natural usage patterns. Let me share a simple but revolutionary solution that cost me less than $15 to implement. I took a basic shoe organizer, yes, those hanging ones with pockets, and transformed it into what I call a stealth command center. But here's the crucial part that most people miss, the placement. Through trial and error, I discovered there's an optimal height for these tech stations, what I call the natural reach zone, roughly between 36 and 48 inches from the floor. The game-changing part? I installed it on the hidden side of my entertainment center, creating designated pockets for every device and cable. Each family member has their own charging section, eliminating the daily, "Where's my charger?" drama. But here's the really clever part. I added small labels using washi tape and organized everything by frequency of use. Daily items go in the middle pockets, your natural reach zone, weekly items slightly higher, and rarely used items in the bottom pockets. But the hidden hub hack goes beyond just cable management. I discovered what I call the power triangle principle, organizing your tech items based on how they relate to each other. For example, I created a small media zone where the TV remote, streaming device remote, and spare batteries all live together. Next to it, a communication zone for phone chargers, tablets, and portable batteries. And finally, a gaming zone for controllers and accessories. The result? Not only does everything have a place, but the organization actually makes sense with how we use these items in real life. No more tangled cables, no more lost remotes, and most importantly, no more visual chaos. Now for the game-changing secret I promised at the beginning, the reset ritual. This is the technique that professional organizers don't want you to know about because it makes their services unnecessary. It's not about buying more containers or learning complex organizing systems. It's about understanding a fundamental truth about human behavior and using it to your advantage. Here's the breakthrough realization that changed everything. Most organization systems fail not because they're bad systems, but because they fight against our brain's natural patterns. The reset ritual works because it's designed to work with your brain's natural tendency to create habits and routines. Let me share the exact moment this hit home for me. I was watching my 5-year-old's bedtime routine: bath, teeth, story, sleep. It struck me that she never forgot these steps because they'd become a natural flow. That's when I realized the key to maintaining an organized living room isn't about willpower or discipline. It's about creating a simple, natural sequence that your brain automatically wants to follow. Here's how the reset ritual works. Instead of trying to keep your living room perfectly organized all day, which is impossible with real life happening, we focus on 2 specific reset points, what I call your morning launch and evening landing. But here's the crucial part. These aren't just cleaning sessions. They're carefully designed sequences that work with your brain's natural rhythm. Let's start with the evening landing. This is a 5-minute, yes, just 5 minutes, sequence that sets you up for success the next day. But the magic isn't in the cleaning, it's in the order of operations. Through extensive trial and error, I've discovered there's an optimal sequence that makes this ritual almost effortless. Step 1 is what I call the sweep and sort. But here's the game-changing trick. Don't start picking things up yet. Instead, stand in the doorway of your living room and let your eyes naturally scan the space. Your brain will automatically identify items that are out of place. This takes advantage of what neuroscientists call pattern recognition, your brain's natural ability to spot what doesn't belong. Next comes the flow reset. This is where you clear your main pathway through the room, what we identified earlier with the flow fix formula. But here's the crucial part. Don't worry about organizing yet. Just clear the path. This creates what I call a movement momentum that makes the rest of the ritual feel natural and easy. The third step is the zone reset, where you quickly return items to their power zones. Remember those zones we set up earlier? This is where that system really proves its worth. But here's the psychological trick that makes this work. You're not cleaning, you're simply returning items to their homes. This subtle mindset shift makes a huge difference in how your brain approaches the task. Finally, there's what I call the peace pause, a 30-second moment where you stand in your cleared space and let your brain register the change. This isn't just feel-good fluff. It's actually programming your brain to expect and maintain this level of organization. The morning launch is even simpler. It's a 2-minute ritual that sets the tone for your entire day. But here's what makes it revolutionary. Instead of focusing on what needs to be cleaned, you focus on what I call peace points, the specific areas in your living room that have the biggest impact on how you feel about the space. But here's the real secret that makes the reset ritual stick. It's not about perfection. In fact, trying to be perfect is what causes most organization systems to fail. Instead, we're aiming for what I call lived-in harmony, a space that can handle real life while still maintaining a sense of order and peace. Let me share something personal that really drives this home. The day I stopped trying to maintain a perfect living room was the day I finally created a truly organized one. Because here's the truth, your living room isn't a museum. It's a space where life happens, where memories are made, where your family grows and changes. The goal isn't to eliminate signs of life. It's to create a space that supports and enhances your daily living. That's why this system works so well. It's built around real life, not against it. It doesn't require you to change who you are or how you live. Instead, it helps you create an environment that works with your natural habits and supports your daily joy. Remember that feeling I described at the beginning? That gnaw in your stomach when you walk through your front door? Imagine instead walking into your living room and feeling instant peace. Not because it's perfect, because it never will be, but because it works with your life instead of against it. This isn't just about organization, it's about creating a space that supports your well-being, your relationships, and your daily happiness. I know right now you might be looking around our living room thinking, but my space is different, or this won't work for me. I felt exactly the same way. That's why I wanted to start with just one technique, the Power Zone system. Try it tonight, and I promise you'll see a difference immediately. Share your results in the comments below. I respond personally to every comment because I genuinely want to help you succeed. If this video helped you see your living room in a new light, please hit that like button and subscribe for more practical solutions that actually work in real homes, with real families and real life. Remember, an organized home isn't about perfection. It's about creating a space that helps you live your best life, one small change at a time. See you in the next video, where we'll tackle another space that might be causing you stress right now. Trust me, you won't want to miss this one.